Welcome into Red Raider Recon. I'm Clint Scott. He's Rob Bro.
We are presented by Cantex Roofing today, and we're talking the first three Big 12 games on Texas Tech's schedule.
Are you doing the hand puppet thing too, like you said?
Yeah, we're both doing it.
Nice.
The Red Raiders open Big 12 play with their first trip to Rice-Eccles Stadium. It's also the first meetup between the Utes and Red Raiders as conference opponents. They played twice in their history overall, with Tech winning both games in Lubbock. The first matchup was in 1972, with the second game the year after. Kyle Whittingham is still the man in charge. He's entering his 21st season as the Utes head coach. In a rare occurrence, he's looking for a bounce-back year from his squad after a disastrous 5-7 mark in their first year as a Big 12 member. It'll be back-to-back road games for the Red Raiders, with Tech going to Houston the following week. The Cougars have dropped 6 straight to the Red Raiders dating back to 2010. This is the first time the Cougars are hosting Texas Tech as a Big 12 opponent. In year 2 for Willie Fritz, he's looking to right the ship after going 4-8 in 2024. He'll have to do that with a new defensive coordinator after Shilwood left for Lubbock. The Big 12 home opener is against another program that underachieved last season, the Kansas Jayhawks. Lance Leipold's turnaround in Lawrence hit speed bumps last year, finishing 5-7, losing 5 one-possession games. Quarterback Jalon Daniels had a Jekyll and Hyde 2024 campaign, but does return as the starter, finishing with just under 3,000 total yards and 20 total touchdowns. History, however, is so much on the side of Texas Tech, it might as well be wearing a Red Raider jersey. Kansas is 3-23 all-time against Texas Tech. The Red Raiders will look to do exactly what they did in 2024, open Big 12 play with 3 straight wins.
We talked about Texas Tech's non-con last week. We get into the con of it this week. And like a great con, what's your favorite con movie? Mine too. The conference starts.
Jungle Book. Shere Khan.
The conference starts in Utah.
Do you want like Star Trek or Con?
Yeah, that one also works.
We talked about this in the non-con. Utah is interesting because, well, one, they're coming off just a very, very bad year. We'll talk about them here in just a minute, but it'll be your first, in my mind, true test. Unless Oregon State is just wildly better than not just us, but Vegas is expecting. I think their own beat writers are expecting, because it's anywhere from a 5-7 to a 6-6 team while playing the other Pac-12 team twice, and then a bunch of Mountain West teams. So it's not like we're over here sitting way off from Lubbock. It's like, oh, you should kill Oregon State because you're better than Oregon State. It's just going off of projections and then what they're putting down on paper. And so I think even with the year that Utah's coming off of, that, man, you're really going to ramp that up. And to me, you are ramping it up with the best environment you'll play in all year until you get to whatever the postseason holds for you. And, last year, you look at your first 3 conference games, and, man, you made up a lot of ground, at least as far as confidence goes, with wins over Arizona State, Cincinnati, and at Arizona. And let me ask you this. Will the win over the Sun Devils, will that go down as the most underappreciated win in the Joey McGuire era?
Yeah, potentially, yeah.
Because it is right now. And even, I mean, we've seen, obviously we've done the like, oh, and you didn't make it, but you beat both teams that made it. But we still don't talk about that win because of how they came. Like, in my mind, that's a ranked win. It's not a ranked win.
Right.
But when we talk about Joey McGuire ranked wins, like, or best wins, that one should be in there, even though it is unranked.
Right.
But anyway, so you're looking at a 3-game stretch that honestly feels kind of similar to last year, at least for the teams, because now you might talk to some national people and they'll feel differently about Utah. But like around here, of those 3 teams, who are you projecting to be at the top of the conference?
But the expectation going into last year with Arizona, Arizona State, and Cincinnati was that is a top 5 team in Utah. Everybody thought so. Arizona, sorry. That's a top 5 team in Arizona. That's like Utah. Smallish athletic quarterback, Dampier, Fafita. And then it's 2 teams that weren't expected to be very good. Now, obviously, Arizona State did what they did, and Cincinnati was good in the first half, bad in the second half.
Yeah, they were the negative version of Baylor.
If you look at this schedule, it's Utah, similar to Arizona of last year, some expectations there. It's Houston, who has 0 expectations this year. And if they did a Big 12 media poll, probably would have been 14th, 15th, 16th. And then Kansas, who, similar to Cincinnati, is a cusp of a bowl team that you might think can figure it out. Now, I think highly of Leipold and not highly of Satterfield, but if you just kind of take the 3 games, it's similar to the stretch last year, a stretch you started 3-0 in.
I think part of it, like, you also have to look at when we're looking back at these wins. You said, what stage did you find these teams in? I do think Arizona State was playing much better football by the end of the season, but that was still the same Arizona State squad they were putting on, on the roster and on the field. And Cincinnati, man, they have to look at you and their loss, a 1-point loss to Pitt and their non-con, or just don't lose 5 games to end the season.
Right.
But I thought that was not the same conversation as Arizona State, but I also don't think we put enough respect on that win against Cincinnati because you had to go earn that one. Now I get it. I mean, it's a shootout, and in the end you're looking at a 5-7 team. So I'm not trying to put it in like the greatest win of all time, but I think in that stretch you played some really good football. And 2 of those games were 2 of your better defensive games, especially against Arizona. Jacob Rodriguez was like Superman in that game. And I don't know. If I told you, without knowing how you got there, these 3 games we're about to talk about, you go win 30-22, you win 44-41, and you win 28-22. I'm taking that, but I'm also walking away. You haven't remotely reached your peak on both sides of the ball.
I would be happy about the Utah game. Mm-hmm. The Houston game would worry me because that offense scoring 40 points on you would be frustrating. But I would take that Kansas game too. I think Kansas would be good.
This is also interesting. You're starting out with 2 road games. Regardless of who the opponent is, it's 2 conference road games. You know the last time you started out Big 12 play on the road twice? I'll give you the teams if it helps.
Yeah, give me the teams.
It was. I'll even give you not the points. I'll just give you the results. It was a loss to Texas and a win over West Virginia.
Okay, so that would have been Matt Wells' final season in 2021.
It was 2021. It was also the last time you went 3-0 in the non-conference, for what it's worth. Before that, you have to go all the way back to 2014 when you lost to a ranked Oklahoma State and Kansas State squad the next week. So there's your quick glimpse of history.
Yeah, you started that season 5-2 with 2 Big 12 losses. Interesting.
Well, it was a loss to Texas and a win over West Virginia, so it was 1-1.
Well, and then you lost to Oklahoma.
I think.
Yeah, they were weird. It's further on. That's 7 games in. You were 5-2. Then you played Kansas State at home.
I thought you were saying.
No, I continued on. Yeah.
My bad. Let's get into Utah. Huge road test. What went wrong for the Utes last year?
The offense. Yes, Cam Rising getting injured, and they were ill-prepared to fill that void. I think leadership of Cam Rising on the field. I was not a big Cam Rising fan going into the year, but it obviously shook that offense, and the offense was so bad they fired the offense coordinator. Mm-hmm. And so there were obvious issues offensively. But I really, I look at their results last year, and sure, you can pick and choose, but I thought their defense was really good last year. So I think it was as basic for Utah as they just didn't score enough points. That was their issue, and really their only issue.
I mean, statistically, they were one of the best defenses, and it's almost like you look, and I'm going to say this in 2 different ways for 2 teams we're talking about. Look at how bad the offense was, and then just how good the defense was, and just some of the results don't make any sense because they absolutely kept them in a bunch of games. And the Cam Rising thing I think is very interesting because, a very arrogant Utah fan base that was coming into the Big 12, they were going to own the Big 12. They were going to come in and, with their noses high in the air, they were going to come in and slum it up with the rest of us and show them how to class up the joint. And then our quarterback went down, which, hey, everyone in the Big 12 is laughing at that, especially around here, have dealt with that and still have found ways to win some games and not end with the same season that they did. And what doesn't make sense to me about that, Rob, is with the argument of we didn't have Rising. Well, you didn't have him at all the season before. So how do you not have a better contingency plan? Is it that they missed in the portal, or did they misread Isaac Wilson as a freshman that badly? But either way, even without Rising at all the year before, they went 8-4. They made a bowl game. They had a really nice conference season in the final year of the Pac-12. That was a very good version of the Pac-12. It's kind of funny it took them that long to get there. So that's where I look at Devin Dampier and also some of the other pieces, and I start questioning, well, how much, at least a new OC coming in, how much better can that be? Because it really did feel like it was just Rising going down that just tanked the ship, and it just didn't make any sense.
Yeah, you look at their offensive production from last year, just in Big 12 play. They played Baylor early. That was not a Big 12 game. They won 23-12. That's the game where Cam Rising cuts his hand on the cooler or whatever it was.
Weird play, too.
After that, they scored 22 in a win over Oklahoma State. They scored 10 in a loss against Arizona, 19 in a loss to Arizona State, 7 in a loss to TCU, 14 in a loss to Houston, 21 in a loss to BYU. So there's a stretch there between a win against Oklahoma State, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. They score 22 or less and go 1-5. And they're close games.
Yeah.
And then they gave up 49 to Colorado. There's no reason. But if they scored 22 a game, if they scored 22 in that stretch, they would have been 5-1. 4-2.
Yeah. And I think that they're really going to test this year because I don't think that they'll be dramatically better offensively, but I think that this is where it'll be somewhat better. So you're asking the defense to be the exact same, and they've been consistent under Whittingham. I mean, that's one of the best things that you've seen under Utah or under Whittingham at Utah is the word consistency, and it's been that way for 21 seasons. And I also think we discredit. Okay, I was at a smaller level. I go despite seeing so much conference transition for a program that they've been that makes it more impressive to me. But look at the offense now, and on top of it, I also think they're playing a dangerous recipe of unknown. Wayshawn Parker is a very good running back, but it's okay, well, is he that much better than Micah Bernard? That's a guy that was a 1,000-yard rusher last year, over 2,000 in his career. Did they get worse at receiver? You lost your best targets, and you're hoping a returner like Dadrin Zipperer, is he going to have a better year than 122 receiving yards? You're hoping in a couple of transfers.
He might not even be a starter.
Yeah, like Whittemore from Mississippi State, 167 career yards. Larry Simmons, 421 last year, but at Southern Miss. Or Tobias Merriweather, 125 last. It's all of these guys that you are hoping to hit on, and that doesn't always happen. So when you add into that, you're trying to improve the offense, and you lose guys like their tight end Quaith, who played so much football, or Dorian Singer, who's trying to make the Jaguars roster. You add in a volatile quarterback like Devin Dampier. I look at all that, and I'm feeling less and less confident. How much better will they be? I don't have them as a Big 12 champion contender. There's some that do. There's national talking heads that do. There's one to the right of me that does. I don't think the offense is going to be all that much better. I think it will be better, but I don't think it's a giant step forward.
No, but as I'm looking, I don't know that it needs to be a giant step. so much as a moderate step. I mean, if they were just moderately better last year, if they scored 24 points a game in Big 12 play, they're for certainly bowling.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were dreadful on offense and went 5-7.
Mm-hmm.
Returning production, based on Connolly at ESPN, they returned 75% of their offensive production, though some of that is guys stepping back. A lot of that is offensive line.
Mm-hmm. And that's
a lot of that is offensive
it's
line.
legit.
And they have 2 first-round projected offensive tackles, and the interior offensive line is really good too.
And then just tell me how rare is it to return all 5 starters?
They could have 6 new starters offensively. 5. Their tight end is back as well, but they could have 3 new starters on the wide receiver room, and Wayshawn Parker, who had 730 yards at Washington State as a freshman. I just think they can be moderately successful. And you brought up Devin Dampier. You called him volatile. Mm-hmm. And I think there's something to be said there. If you just look at him as a passer, 2,800 yards, 12 touchdowns, 12 picks.
Sure.
58% completion. If you just look at that, it's like, ooh.
Oh, that's not volatile. That's awful.
That's awful.
That's bad.
But with his legs as a sophomore, he had 1,200 yards and 19 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
19. So, to me, if he can get to Utah and just improve to 60% and get, 2 more passing touchdowns and erase 2 to 4 interceptions, I think he's a quarterback that can lead offensively a competent offense. Mm-hmm. Now, will they go from 5-7 to 9-3? I don't know. Potentially, with the defense returning what they're returning and the offensive line returning what they're returning, and Devin Dampier's not learning a new offense. He brings in the offensive coordinator from New Mexico, and one of the receivers, Ryan Davis, also joining from New Mexico. So there's some continuity there.
Mm-hmm. I think for Dampier, because, like you said, I agree with you that if you can, and I think that this is how they'll utilize him. You go back to, and I get it, different offensive coordinator, but I would think Whittingham would want to return to this, where it really is focusing on the running side, like they did a couple of years ago, where they went 8-4 without Cam Rising. I'm not saying to completely get rid of the passing game, but if Dampier, like last year, yes, the passing stats were horrendous, but when you break it down, when it was truly bad, it was like, is this guy going to survive in the Power 4? 6 times last year, he had to throw the ball more than 30 times. He threw 9 of his interceptions in those games. And their record in those games, 0-6. And that wasn't all against some of the better teams on their schedule either. So, to me, when he looked bad, he was like a lower level, somehow worse version of non-conference Jalon Daniels from last year. Now, you're allowed to get better. Sure. You're allowed to get better. You're allowed to get another year older. I just think everything that has made Utah consistent on offense is not what Devin Dampier is a quarterback. So with the new offensive coordinator, I'm just very interested in that mixture. Now, this is a long way to say I think that this game is going to be really tough, and it's going to start because of the defensive line, or for the defense for Utah, and then obviously the offensive line. And so I think that they are going to test how much can, in that recipe, and it's done well for them, if they can play clean, how much can a really good defense and a dominant offensive line do for you, and how far can they take you?
I think Devin Dampier will be really good with a lead. I think Devin Dampier will be really good in close games. Devin Dampier is not the guy you want coming back from down 10.
Mm-hmm.
That's the recipe to be Utah. And you also have to play a clean game against this defense. I gave you the returning production offensively. The returning production defensively for Utah sits closer to 56%. The transfer portal, they're bringing 148 starts back. Again, a lot of that on the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
They're bringing in 64 starts, receiver, running back, some on defense. But really, you've just kind of bumped up players from last year's roster defensively, you have potentially one starter out of the transfer portal, and that's Blake Cotton.
Which is also really impressive when you add in that it's a good thing for them that that's happening.
Yeah.
And it's not like, well, we just couldn't get anybody to transfer here.
Right.
Confidence, if I told you to put it at a percentage, that you will walk out of Utah with a Big 12 opening win.
Look, it's hard to say before we get to Kansas State and Arizona State. I think those are your 3 toughest conference games.
Agreed.
I think you'll hopefully win 2 of those. Just based on how Joey McGuire and his teams have performed early on the road, Washington State, Wyoming, Arizona was a little bit different last year, but you really struggled in that game for a large stretch before you took over late. I would say Utah's a really good chance to win this game. I would still put Texas Tech over 50%.
Yeah.
But if it's like 55%, that's pretty close to a coin flip, I think.
So you're at 55? Because I'm at 60. And part of it is, I think, even though a lot of it is coming back for them and they've been in a Utah jersey, I think you have the shot to out-veteran some people. And I think this is also a big reason why you have the expectations. And so I feel a little bit better, but at the same time, I'm with you. It's when we get to it, as of right now, it might be the second worst I feel about a game, even with as much as I think Arizona State and Kansas State are going to be really tough. And we've got time before we shoot that stretch of games that I might change. But it's one of the lower percentages that I have right now. And I also, like I said, I think the environment is a big piece of that too. And I think that's good. I think that's good that you are ripping off that Band-Aid with as tough of a challenge as you will. And who knows, if things go south, maybe I'm going, well, wish you wouldn't have started there. But as of right now, I think there's a lot of things that they do well that you're going to be able to use as a measuring stick. Like past just winning or losing the game, is your defensive line as dominant as we think it is? Now you might, and I would venture to guess you're not going to just wreck shop against their offensive line, but if you more than hold your own and you win that trenches, by the way, trenches battle on both sides because the defensive line is good too, I'm going to walk away from there feeling really good about the units that you've put together.
Yeah, if you're 4-0 after Utah, as we go through this, I think you have a really good opportunity to be 6-0.
Yeah, so let's get into Houston then. Houston, I also think it's funny that you are, again, different years, different offenses, but you are playing 2 of the worst 3 offenses from last year to open Big 12 play. And one, I think, got a little bit better, and that was the one we just talked about. You know, feel how Utah's offense about how you will. I don't think Houston got better. It depends on how much you're a believer, to me, in a certain quarterback that they brought in, and I am not a believer of Connor Wickman.
Houston nationally has top 20 returning production. 7th in the Big 12, right behind Utah. They're bringing back 111 starts. They brought in 182.
Mm-hmm. I think 30 total players, 28 outgoing.
The most starts brought in, West Virginia brought in 173. Texas Tech brought in 129. But Houston brought in, that is the most, 182 starts.
Mm-hmm.
So they brought in a lot of players, but I don't know if I'm willing to call it a reload.
Which is how they're wording it over on like the Houston Chronicle and things like that. And I think there's one thing to go, hey, there's a bunch of starts coming this way. And then I also think that there's a reason why those starts are going to where they are.
Yeah.
And I also think there's a reason, I don't think the plan for Willie Fritz was to get 30 players out of the portal. I think that turned into the plan when everything disassembled. And the thing we have to remember, too, the defense if you were trying to do building blocks for that, because that unit was really good, vastly improved, well, either those, and it was kind of a no-name defense. I think they bring back 4 starters on defense. They either graduated out or they transferred. And then also, by the way, they had to hire a new defensive coordinator, and it was a guy who was a co-DC over at Florida, very up and down career over there. So, like, what can he carry over from his system? I think that's a big thing for me, though. It's like I think there's a reason why you had to bring in that many players, and I don't necessarily think you upgraded anything. And the defense, how much did those no-name defenders that left, or just shield wood, do they revert back to a bad defense like they had been? Austin Armstrong is the defensive coordinator. By the way.
I think Willie Fritz is a good coach.
I agree.
I think Houston will be better than last year. Are they 2 games better, 4 games better? I'm more on the 2-game trend, which would make them 6-6 in 2025. You mentioned the atmosphere at Rice Eccles. What is
vastly
it?
different.
TDGCEUF at Houston. Look, they brought in Tanner Kozio. I think he's really good at tight end.
Yes.
Probably the best Big 12 transfer tight end. I would argue Terrence Carter, but he was really good at Ball State. Like Mackey Award type season. Wegman is so interesting to me. I don't think he's good. But
also agree.
But like he's better than what they had last year in Zion Chris. And he's back, by the way.
Right, and I think that's a very interesting situation because I don't think he stays if he didn't think he had a shot to see the field. Now, it might be package stuff, but still.
They also bring in a Big 12 offensive tackle, Dalton Merriman, who played some at Texas Tech but was not overly successful playing tackle at Texas Tech. Couldn't really iron out a role and did not see a role for himself moving forward, which is why he transferred out. And then they have 4 more offensive lineman transfers. They were 5 offensive linemen in. 3 could start, 5 could start. I don't know. But when I talk about Houston, I kind of have a lot of parallels with what I think about Texas Tech. Hey, they brought in a great starting tight end. Who am I talking about? Brought in a great starting tight end. They addressed their needs on the offensive line by bringing in bodies. They went and added at least 1 wide receiver who had a breakout season. And defensively, they identified needs at corner, defensive line.
They brought in a quarterback who should be a third stringer.
Right.
I see it.
Right. Now, their portal class wasn't ranked number 1, and so the expectation is different between Texas Tech and Houston, but I do think they address some needs, and I think defensively they can carry on what Shieldwood implemented and be a little bit better offensively. Now, we talked about Utah, who was bad last year offensively, good defensively. I think they take a step forward. Houston, really bad offensively, good defensively. I don't think there's enough continuity in what Houston brought in to have them make a leap in year 2 of Willie Fritz. In year 27, 35, 64 of Whittingham, a lot of continuity. They bring in a receiver, quarterback, offensive coordinator trio. There's continuity. Houston just throwing darts right now.
It's funny because Willie Fritz, you have him in this offseason openly at press conferences talking about the lack of funding and how tough it is at Houston. I don't understand. I think Willie Fritz is a terrific coach. And if I was a Houston fan, I'm hoping he has a long, not like fired after this year, but I mean like long leash as in like 4 or 5 years. He's also, we talk about coaches' ages all the time. He's coached forever.
Right.
So I don't know what his what his own personal, like, I'm going to coach another 10 years or whatever that is for. But if I'm a Houston fan, I'm hoping they give him as long a leash as possible. For Willie Fritz, just the way that he's talking with lack of support and things like that, when it comes to just financing, if you will, a team, that doesn't give me confidence. I'm with you. It feels like a scatter shot. And even if, 14 a game is what they scored offensively. So, yes, they could be better scoring 17 a game, and that still be by far the worst in the conference. And then so if they take a minimal step forward offensively and even just a minimal step back defensively, I don't think the defense will be better than it was last year. I don't know if it'll be doldrums bad or anything like that, but if you just have that kind of shift, well, they're in the same spot that they were last year and are getting beat up in the Big 12. And I think it'll be closer to that.
14, by the way, was total conference. They scored 12.9.
Yeah. Look, I will say this. I think they're clearly a bottom 3 team in the league. I think, well, I'll say this too. I'm never going to go into a specific week and say you should blow this team out. The Big 12 is weird. We all know how competitive it is. But I'll say this. If you are going to be a true contender to Arlington, you have to blow out, or probably are going to blow out, a couple of teams. Last year, you look at the 7-2 squads. Arizona State gave regular season, not to mention a Big 12 beatdown in the championship game, but regular season beatdowns to Oklahoma State and Arizona. They blew out the teams that they should have. Iowa State thumped Houston, also thumped Baylor, and Cincinnati. Colorado dismantled UCF, Arizona, and Oklahoma State. BYU hammered Kansas State, Arizona, and Houston. You keep on seeing Arizona and Houston, 2 of the worst teams from last year, and then Oklahoma State when they were on these team schedules. Those teams took care of the teams that they needed to in a way that they should. So I'll just say that. I think if you do that, Houston is a big-time candidate to have a very big lead by the time the fourth quarter rolls around.
Yeah. I mean, if Houston is a touchdown better than last year, they're 15th in the conference offensively. Offensively in conference only scoring.
Ouch.
Yeah, a full touchdown better.
You know what I still don't get? Just going back to Willie Fritz, I'm sure there's a reason out there, and he's probably said it, but he had so much success. You would have thought, and he's been on other, at least when people are putting out, hey, this job's open, look out for Willie Fritz, a part of like, and who knows what calling was like and stuff like that. I think he was originally on before Napier, who was kind of that. Every single power job that opened, he was on that list. Look out, and he finally takes the Florida job. I will never understand why Whittingham, when he finally makes the jump, it was to Houston, and when it was to Houston.
Yeah, Fritz.
Yes, Willie Fritz. Sorry,
yeah.
But that's just a personal issue that I could have a sit-down conversation. He could give me a bunch of good reasons, and I would still walk away just like, I don't get it.
Last shot at a Power 5 job? I don't know. Because once he gets here, the Pac-12 explodes. You probably see that coming anyways, based on when he came. Maybe he thought the Big 12 was going to be, I don't know. Maybe they sold him on Houston being a sleeping giant. And he got there and was like, hey, the basketball team gets all the money here.
Yeah, It was like, hey, this is Kelvin Sampson. You're going to hear his name a lot.
Yeah.
Percentage for this game. Let's keep doing the percentage game, shall we?
You'd be hard-pressed to find me go over 80% in a Big 12 game.
Mm-hmm.
Which is how the conference works. 78%.
85.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, I do not argue at all. I think UCF is going to be real close to 80 because that's at home. If I see Texas Tech do what I think they can do in the non-con, it'd probably go up to 85. But I want to see it first. And so just right now.
That's a smart, and that's usually how for some reason, this team has made me say some bold things for what I usually do.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the last game of the stretch. It's game number 6 on the season. It is your Big 12 home opener. It is against those Kansas Jayhawks. The curious case of the Kansas Jayhawks, which, by the way, if he is healthy, this will be the first time you've played against Jalon Daniels in his career. Certainly at home.
Certainly at home. Did you not get? Was it Bean?
It was Bean and then Cole Ballard.
Yeah, in that one game out in the
game in Lawrence.
He didn't play him last year. So yeah, potentially. Unless Jalon Daniels and Donovan Smith were dueling it out in Kansas.
That might have been Daniels' job by then. Certainly in Lubbock, though.
Certainly in Lubbock. I'm perusing here. Hold on.
Yeah.
Well, keep going.
Well, that just brings up the question, which Jalon Daniels? I think you could simplify this to, and they have a lot of turnover. We'll talk about here in a second. But I think it is as simple as which Jalon Daniels do you get in Lubbock? For which version of Kansas do you see? Certainly the offense. I think they have high-end talent on both sides of the ball. The problem for them, if you get past just Jalon Daniels, is that around that high-end talent, they are surrounded by so many major question marks with what they lost. And at the end of the day, again, I think that their quarterback will truly define their season. But last year, you remember the question, it's just weird how it kept on getting asked to me, why? Why are the Jayhawks picked to compete for a conference championship? And why do they go from that to missing a bowl game? And I think that this is even more concerning or more concerning for those in Lawrence anyways. They were explosive, but the reason they were getting picked so much past that is they were loaded with seniors, and seniors that had been around that program for a while. And now you go to returning 7 starters, 3 on offense, or 4 on offense, 3 on defense. And I think their offensive line will be a plus again. It won't be quite as good offensively. It can't be without Devin Neal at the running back spot, but I think Daniel Highshaw and LaShawn Williams, a transfer, will be good enough and legitimate threat as a pair. But receiver-wise, even with Jalon Daniels, depending on which one you get, what do they get out of the receivers? I mean, you lost Luke Grimm, Lawrence Arnold, and Quentin Skinner, and not to mention Devin Neal also in the passing game, and everyone's favorite tight end, Jared Casey. Well, that's a lot of really talented production you're trying to replace in the passing game. Plus, just going, man, I hope Jalon Daniels stays healthy and doesn't throw it to the other team.
We talked about Utah returning a lot of production. We talked about Houston returning a lot of production. They also boast brought in starting production. Kansas returns 80 starts. They only added 82 starts.
Yeah.
49% of the defensive production returns and 62% of the offensive production. Now, a lot of that is Jalon Daniels and 4 offensive linemen, a tight end.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of it, I mean, they could potentially, Highshaw is back, but it could be that LaShawn Williams is the starter out of Iowa. The starter at Kansas at running back is interesting. Well, they use them both.
I would venture to guess the plan for them. And now what's funny is Highshaw and LaShawn Williams seem like more similar runners than what you had with Devin Neal and Highshaw. But Highshaw has been injured the last 2 seasons, and so you have to have a guy that can be a feature back. But I'm with you. It's really meant to be 1A, 1B.
They're going to run a lot of runs. Mm-hmm. And then defensively, you could have 6 fresh starters out of the transfer portal. Mm-hmm. And again, we've talked about that as a positive for Texas Tech. It certainly can be a positive for Kansas, that they went out and identified what they needed, who they needed, and got good scheme fits in. Potentially. But I think if you're looking at Utah, me personally, if I'm looking at Utah, I think they are an improved team. I think Houston is a similar team. I think they'll be pretty good on defense. I think they take a step back on defense. They might take a stumble forward on offense. It can't be worse, right? Mm-hmm. Can always be worse. I have no idea on Kansas.
No, I
have no idea. I think they'll be about the same.
I think it's so confusing when you look at first. Well, just look at their season last year. 5 one-possession games that they find ways to lose. And then on top of that, they have a stretch where they go 4-1 with a 2-point loss to one of those one-possession losses mixed in between. And that was in the back half of play where they make it where the Baylor game that they just get obliterated in Waco, that's for bowl eligibility. And the way that they start with just odd losses to, not odd that they lost to Illinois, but how they lost that game, where the defense was so good. But Jalon Daniels, that was the first glimpse like, oh, surely he won't do that again. And then just kept turning the ball over and then did so. You remember a player with the last name Sluka over at UNLV?
Uh-huh.
And then that little storyline that unfolded afterwards, he just, wanted to beat Kansas and then fought for money, and I think is over at James Madison now.
Yeah.
Last season was so weird. So add that in as one factor. And then add in just Jalon Daniels as his own confusing factor. And then plus you add in, the amount of new faces that you mentioned, either from the transfer portal or also some of the younger guys. And if you ask them, now you're supposed to if you're a coach, if you ask them, Coach Leipold is very bullish. And I'll say this, I think that through the transfer portal, they've scouted pretty well already in his short stint defensively to get to the point where they're a respectable program. But is that enough to instill confidence that, hey, this could be an 8-win team? Or is that more, we're still going to be fighting for bowl eligibility with a couple of weeks to go? And it's hard to tell. And also, I go back to, again, I think this is the biggest question marks they've had with their weapons since Leipold's first year.
Yeah. And
again, part of that is you used the word continuity. They've had that with weapons, and now all of those guys are gone outside of Jalon Daniels, who's in like year 12 in Lawrence.
Never has a stat against Texas Tech. This will be his first.
Yeah.
In wins, in Big 12 wins, because I don't want to take Lindenwood into account.
You shouldn't.
In Big 12 wins, Jalon Daniels was 16 of 21, 76% completion, 247, 3 touchdowns, no picks. That's Houston. Again, Houston, good defense last year. Mm-hmm. Iowa State, 50% completion, 12 of 24, 295 yards. A lot of big plays there. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Jalon Daniels in his next 2 wins, 63% completion, 66 complete percentage, about 170 yards, 190 yards, and then he threw a pick against BYU, no touchdowns.
Boy, that game was odd that they
only
found
gave up
a way to win that.
points.
Yeah, that was the defensive stalwart game.
They scored 37 points against Colorado in a win, and touchdown, no picks. Now let's go to the losses, and let's go all the losses. Mm-hmm. Kansas, Illinois, 56 completion percentage, 141 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 picks. 50% completion, 153 yards. This is against UNLV, no touchdowns, 2 picks. Against West Virginia, 60% completion, touchdown, pick. Against Texas Christian, 44 completion percentage, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. And then his best game in a loss against Arizona State, 58% completion, 260, 2 touchdowns, no picks. I mean, how is the same quarterback that goes 16 of 21 for 247, 3 touchdowns, no picks? How is that the same guy against a good defense in Houston? The same guy against a TCU defense that didn't have a pulse in a bunch of games, go 44% completion, 179, a touchdown and a pick. I mean, it just does not compute to me. You also, in a stretch of wins, have 58 yards rushing, 66 yards rushing, 68 yards rushing, 72 yards rushing. And against UNLV, you're only in the game because of 2 rushing touchdowns from Jalon Daniels. But you go to that Texas Christian game, 4 attempts, 6 yards, 1.5 yards per carry. No touchdowns. I mean, how is that the same guy? And he's healthy, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's what
who is Jalen Daniels?
He comes off of 2 years where he's dealing with back injuries of all things, and the thought was, and I still think this, that when he's at his best, I'm not going to say he's the best quarterback in the Big 12, but he's a top 3 quarterback in the Big 12. When he's not at his best, boy, he looks like he's a bottom 3 quarterback in the Big 12, and so the thought was that he was healthy, and he's there for every game. And then you go, boy, some of these games I wish he wasn't available, because Cole Ballard would at least take care of the ball if you're watching that. And I also, we talk about offensive coordinator's effect on a quarterback. Jeff Grimes 1 year was not pretty. And not just with Jalen Daniels, how he approached the offense. And it sure seemed like by the end of the year, they had given the reins back to Jim Zabrowski, who called the bowl game the year before against UNLV, and also was, a big piece underneath Kettlenicki over at Penn State. And so now he's taken the reins back as the offensive coordinator, because Grimes went to Wisconsin and certainly wasn't forced out. For what it's worth, they also had to promote a defensive coordinator after Brian Borland retired, DK McDonald. I'm not sure if there'll be much of a different approach there either. So is that something that's helpful? And I think through some of those wins, I also think they got to some things that maybe Jalen Daniels was a little more comfortable with. And also, we can look at those stats and then also say, look at Devin Neal, because he went out and like that Colorado game and Iowa State was offensively winning in that game. So do you have enough to be able to do that if things are going awry and things aren't gelling with LaShawn Williams and Daniel Highshaw? Because at this point, I just don't expect, and I wouldn't as an opponent, and this is what's scary too, as an opponent or as a fan, I wouldn't expect a out-of-this-world Jalen Daniels every game. But that's the thing, you can't lean on that when you're game planning or anything. Like, you have to approach it like he's not going to throw you the ball 3 times, and that he may make these just mind-blowing plays and be really efficient and kill you with his legs, whatever that may be, which is, I think, a little unnerving when you're scouting him.
Clint, this is a Texas Tech podcast, Red Order Recon. I've been doing it all summer. But I know you grew up as a Kansas fan, so I just want to say something. I don't want you to get offended and be mad at me.
I've never been offended.
You alluded to it in your last speech paragraph there. I'm going to take it further.
Okay.
Not only is Jalen Daniels not good anymore because Kettlenicki left.
Oh.
I don't know if Lance Leipold's any good because Kettlenicki left. Look, if you look at Lance Leipold's record, with and without Kettlenicki, it is jarring. Now, his understudy's back in charge of the offense. If you can get back to, hey, Jalen Daniels, you're throwing to open guys. Mm-hmm. We're scheming you open. The run game is vital to the pass game. It's all play action, basically. There's read option. There's RPO. You're working the tight end. If you can just be that, and it's not basic, it's really developed, but it's how you play NCAA. Right. You're basically Kettlenicki. It's RPOs. It's everything.
It's
every play
too.
Is an option. Yeah, Kettlenicki. Yeah. Every play is an option because it's read option, it's play action, it's RPO. It is,
and it's relative for college football. It's relatively easy reads too.
Yeah, it's one read.
Yeah,
and they're generally open. And so if you can connect on those, and if you can be the athlete that Jalen Daniels is, yes, they can have a lot of success offensively. But is Leipold a good coach, or did he hire an all-star?
I think Leipold is a great program builder. I think there's a reason why it's still his system, and this is where this is what gives to what you're saying gave me a little bit of pause, because I do think that they really like Zabrowski, but then I go, well, then why did you bring in Jeff Grimes? Was there pressure? Like, hey, you got to bring in a name, even though I don't think anybody was excited about Jeff Grimes. But he's certainly seen a ton of football, and he's coached on some really good teams. And it's not like he's been all bad or anything like that, but the recent version of Jeff Grimes was not very exciting. So that always was confusing. But I don't think you're the only one that thinks that. And now it's, okay, well, without, a couple years removed from the OC that was really good day one from Kansas, and a defensive coordinator, by the way, and Brian Borland, who helped also build them up, not just on the offensive side of the ball. It's not like they've been dominant defensive, but they were way different. So can DK McDonald continue some of that? And I think we might step back and say, well, maybe he wasn't as great. I think he's a good coach regardless, but maybe he's not as great as we built him up, and people started putting him in top 5s for the Big 12 and top 3 in the Big 12. I think we know he's a good program builder. Can he be a consistent threat in the Big 12? I think we'll find out in a couple of years. I don't even think we'll get that answer this year, because even if they have an 8-9 win season, you go, okay, well, how do you follow that up? Because again, then you'll go back in the same boat where you're going into another year with expectations. And if you fall flat on your face and you just go wishy-washy, there's worse things to be, certainly for their culture of what you've seen in the past 2 decades, and certainly a much better spot. But I think where does he rank as active Big 12 coaches? I think it's hard to tell right now. I think he's on the plus side, firmly.
Top 8?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say firmly, but
I would. Let's look at this 3-game stretch from this angle. Likes, concerns, what jumps out to you?
First of all, I have a 70% confidence on Kansas.
Sorry. 75. No, I'll go 70% too. Yeah, I actually agree with that. 70%.
So this is a 5-4 year. 5 road, 4 home in the conference. You get 3 home games right off that. Boom, boom, boom.
Bang, bang,
then
boom.
Then you go 2 on the road, 1 at home.
Turn into West Texas car salesman.
Bing, bang, boom, yeah. So I like that you get 2 in a row out front. So then it's 4-4. You start with the road game, so it's not like a stretch. I'd rather have the stretch at the beginning than at the end where you play back-to-back road games.
Yeah, I agree.
So you do end at West Virginia. So in the middle there, if 3 of your road games are bookends, that's a stretch in the middle of mostly home. So I like how the schedule sets up. I would prefer to play Houston on the road first.
Yeah.
And then go play Utah. I hope Oregon State is better than we think, that they can kind of punch you in the mouth a little bit and you can win by 2 possessions.
That would be a good thing. I think that's a good point.
Because I think Utah will be more battle-tested playing UCLA and the likes. Not like way more battle-tested.
Only because they're on the road.
They play 2 road games. One's Cal Poly, the other one's UCLA. So it's not like they're...
It's at Wyoming, Cal Poly's
at home. Wyoming, Cal Poly's at home. Yeah. That's right. They start at UCLA, Cal Poly, and then Wyoming. So it's not like they have just an outrageous amount, but that's their first big home game. I don't know what Utah is at Rice Eccles anymore. The fan base doesn't seem to be bought in on the Big 12. And from what I can tell, it doesn't look like a lot of people went to the games last year, as opposed to maybe some of the screenshots and videos they show from Pac-12 days. Mm-hmm. I think they want to beat Texas Tech.
I was going to say, I think
it'll be a big atmosphere.
I
think it'll be a big atmosphere at Texas Tech. So,
yeah.
Mostly I like how the schedule starts. I think that's 2 really winnable games in Houston and Kansas. And I think it's a moderately winnable game at Utah. And I think you can start 6-0.
What do you think the line will be at Utah?
3.5.
In favor.
Favored?
You'll be favored? I might go you 1.5. I think that it'll be really close within that window, but I do think you'll be
depending
favored.
on how they start, yeah.
I like over that stretch on paper, you'll have the opportunity to have a lot of turnovers. Mm-hmm. I think you've got 3 teams and 3 quarterbacks specifically that absolutely can give you some free takeaways, and I think you can rattle for 2 of them if you can contain them on the ground. And so I really like that. This is kind of a like and a concern. I already talked about it, but I like that you're seeing Utah's offensive line early, and you can use that as that measuring stick. Concerns, it's also the other side of that coin is you're facing a lot of athletic quarterbacks early. And that hasn't always been a strong suit of yours when you've gone up against that. And if I was just picking at things, maybe concern is too strong, but I do wonder if you have a big road win against Utah and you're feeling great and you go into that flat energy at Houston, do you play down to them? Not even lose the game, but do you just play down to them with 2 different environments? And then the other thing, we just talked about it, is what Daniels shows up.
Yeah.
And even, let me say this, even if you get the best version, I like doing the Winter's fingers, he has infected my brain with this. Even if you get the absolute best version of Jalon Daniels, and it's like the best game he's ever played, that's still, if you play to your potential, you will beat them.
Right.
It's more of, do you have a crossover day where he comes in and is red hot? It's the Big 12 home opener. He is playing his best football. You're overhyped, you're overjuiced, and you mess up on some things. That's where that comes into play.
And I think also just on the same side of that coin that you were talking about, defensively you have the opportunity to get some confidence. Offensively, you might start slow against Houston and Utah.
Yeah.
If they can do what they need to do to kind of rebuild those defenses. So.
Let me run through some of this. We'll do this for all the Big 12 teams. You tell me if you want to add somebody, if I miss somebody. If I run through some like MVPs who I think you'll see.
Okay.
Utah, offensive line. You can just do the whole offensive line, but it's specifically if you get into Spencer Fano and Caleb Lomu. And then add in the running back, Wayshawn Parker, for me.
Devin Dampier.
Sure.
He's all Big 12 newcomer of the year.
Shouldn't be. Defense. Linebacker. They've got a few. Again, you go with the production that you could go with. I went with their linebacker, Landon Barton, and their safety, Tao Johnson.
Sure.
Houston, offensively. This is something, one thing they do have is they're returning their top rusher and their top receiver, which I don't think, isn't anything to sneeze at, especially for them. So their running back, Rayshon Sanford, a second, and then their wide receiver, Stephen Johnson. And then you mentioned Tanner Koziel, who is a really terrific tight end, and I don't know how they got him there. But
yeah, if you need 3 names, those are 3 of them.
Yeah, defense, safety, Kentrell Webb, one of the returners, and then I picked defensive lineman Carlos Mack. I think those are the
no additions
on that
one.
Kansas offense center Bryce Foster. You also had in a guard the returning, and then we already talked about the. I went non-quarterbacks here, by the way, and then the running backs we already talked about with Williams and Highshaw, and then defensively, they do have a stud, Dean Miller, defensive end, and then I went the defensive tackle DJ Withers, another older player, and then you could also add in a transfer middle linebacker Joseph Sipp Jr.
Kansas has been really good in the secondary for 3 or 4 years because it was like the same secondary.
Yeah.
For 3 or 4 years.
Without Melo Dotson and Kobe Bryant, what do you look like back there?
I'm really intrigued because their defensive line got a lot of coverage sacks when they were 9-4.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be interested to see if they reloaded. I think Houston has a good opportunity to be better. Yes, would you agree with that? Just even if they go 5-7 again, I think they'll look better than last year.
Very Carlos Allen. I said Carlos Mack. I combined him and Brandon Mack, who also you can put on that list. Carlos Allen. I think they have the opportunity.
They won't regress.
I don't think they will be.
They won't regress.
I think they have the opportunity to be.
You think there's an opportunity to regress?
Well, I think you'll regress defensively, and even if you get a little bit better offensively, I think it evens out.
Houston, I think there's an opportunity to be
Sorry, you were talking about Utah.
Utah,
yes.
will be better.
I was looking at the Houston defensive line.
Okay.
I think Houston will be, or Utah will be a little bit better. Yes.
Houston,
Sorry.
I do think step back on defense.
My bad.
That's right. A little step back. Well, earlier it was like, oh well, but yeah. Little step back defensively, a little step forward offensively. I think they're the same.
Yes.
I think they're 4-8, 5-7. I think that's their window. I don't think they have a big window to jump. Kansas, I think, is the same. I don't know that. I think they can be in a bowl game, certainly.
Yeah.
I think they could be 7-5. But is their window 5-7, 7-5?
Is it weird to say that I think they'll be less talented, but I think they'll have a better record?
No, I mean, all those coin flip games.
Yeah, and so that's where I go, if the ball, and I'm not saying they lost because the ball didn't bounce their way, but if the ball does bounce their way a couple more times, I wouldn't disagree. I've heard there's some that are in the national scale, even some in the building that are like 8-9 win season for the Jayhawks. Mm-hmm. And they keep getting in my head. But when I get talked down and when I like look through the roster, this is just
don't listen to Chuck.
No, it's like Jamie and Choice.
Oh, okay.
It's like Choice picked them for like 10 wins this year, and I was like, oh man. So I don't know. I'm just so confused by they might have the most questions from what are you in the Big 12. Mm-hmm. So I don't think saying a 5-7 to 7-5 window feels way off.
Okay.
Let's get to the fan question of the week, shall we?
Let's do it. Boop, 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 boop.
Same every time. You can also give us a fan question of the week. You can do it right here on the YouTube link, and if you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. Don't you dare. More puppet shows. Hit up my Twitter, hit up Rob's Twitter, or Double T97.3's Twitter as well. Just make sure you send it or label it Red Raider Recon. This is honestly one we've got a lot, and it certainly pertains today because it is your Big 12 home opener. But the question is why, we've covered this a little bit, but why is Utah a favorite after coming off an awful season?
You don't think they are, right? You don't think they're a Big 12 favorite?
No, I don't think they should be a favorite. I think there's people that are absolutely picking them as a favorite. Some even having them in the playoff, which I do think is crazy.
I don't think they're in the playoff, but I'll go first. Can you name all the Big 12 coaches that have been one place 20-plus years and have 3+ conference championships across 3 different leagues?
No, because it'd be probably none.
One.
Oh.
Whittingham.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Can you name all the Big 12 schools that have 2 offensive linemen?
The same thing.
2 offensive linemen projected to go in the first round of the NFL draft?
I would venture to guess none.
There's one. It's Utah. I think Utah's Devin Dampier, offensive coordinator, wide receiver trio, comes in. I think that offense, it cannot be worse. I think Houston's offense could be worse. I think this...
that is where we agree.
I think
can't be worse.
This offense is going to take a step forward. Houston loses a defensive coordinator, loses this, loses that, loses players. Utah's defense could improve from last year. Will they? I don't know. But there is continuity on the defensive side of the ball. That is the head coach in waiting.
Yeah.
All of that means to me that in a league like the Big 12, Utah could win a couple games they shouldn't, lose one they shouldn't, and be in the mix at the end. I think Utah, Arizona State, Kansas State, Texas Tech, Baylor, Kansas, BYU, TCU. Did I miss a big one?
I don't think so. Maybe.
Those 8 teams, I think I had 9 at one point, so I probably missed somebody. So let's just say 9 teams. They could all be 9-3. And I wouldn't be shocked at the end of the year. Not all together, but a selection of those teams could be 9-3. One of them's 10-2. There's a big tie for third place. In a Big 12, where you play 9 conference games and there's 16 teams.
In a Big 12.
That's 7 teams you don't play. You could have a 4-way tie at 10-2, and none of those 4 teams played a similar opponent. Or lost to a similar opponent, I should say. So that's why I think Utah. I don't think Utah, in the traditional sense, is a top 3 team with a big gap below them. I have 9 conference favorites until I see some games.
Okay, when you label it that way, that's where when I'm saying favorites in my mind, like your own personal favorites, who, when I whittle this down to 4 teams that I think it'll actually be decided, I don't think Utah's in that 4. But to answer the question, while you ponder that, I think we're saying the same thing, because I almost just dumbed it down to the Whittingham effect. I'm with you. I think and we'll see after the coach in waiting takes place if this is the same thing. And I'm not imagining a huge drop-off, because they're going to be building the program the same exact way, which has been a winning way. I mean, you don't get 167 wins at the same program for doing something wrong. And I'm with you. I don't think that there's enough respect put on getting those wins over transitions and also conference championships along the way, including the Pac-12. When they did it, it's how they won too. Always physical. They're always disciplined. They do everything the right way. They don't make a lot of mistakes, which is why I think is hilarious with Devin Dampier, because he was a guy who made a lot of mistakes. So we'll see about that recipe. But they simply have always played a winning brand of football. And so I do think, even though last year it unraveled majestically, I think it's the Whittingham effect. And I think I said this for when there was a certain popular Twitter page and podcast that put out the People's